Joining me on Skype is Mr. Jones Musara, who is currently based in Canada. For the purpose of our viewers, any of you who wants to get involved in these discussions or contact us in any way, our Skype address is a.television. It's written on the screen below, and it's a.television. Good evening, Mr. Musara. Could you tell the viewers a little bit about yourself?
Hello, everybody. I'm pleased to be here. Jones Musara, politician and social commentator, as indicated by our host.
Oh, okay. Can you tell us about a bit about your educational background?
Well, I did my creche, primary, secondary, and university in Zimbabwe. Then I went to Canada, where I've pursued some further studies in social sciences, focusing mostly on sociology and politics. So those are my major academic areas of qualification.
Well, this year's tobacco crop is a very big crop. The country is looking upwards of 170 million kg. Small-scale farmers in the resettled areas are also producing tobacco, and they constitute perhaps the bulk of the tobacco producers, to the tune perhaps of over 60% of the production is now being undertaken by ordinary citizens in the countryside. The quality is brilliant, very good quality. It's been improving year by year.
Having watched the clip, what's your take on that, on the situation?
Well, land reform, it has had its challenges. And I don't think it was guaranteed to work 100% from the onset, So when I look at it, I think the glass is half full rather than half empty. And what is now left is for us to fill up the glass. Our elders have opened the way for us. Now it's for us to complement the efforts to ensure that there is a productive use of the land. So whatever is there is a foundation which has been laid. The house is not complete yet. The foundation has been laid. It's a strong one. Now what is needed is for us to inject capital into productive land use. Also for us to diversify land use. Because right now we seem to be trapped in this mentality of thinking that the land is just for farming. Of course, when you look at history itself, most of the farmland or the land that was that we repossessed from some colonial settlers was land which was identified in the most fertile regions of Zimbabwe. So understandably, to a large extent, that land is for farming. But we also have to carry some land research to make sure that the land is being used for its most productive purpose. If some area cannot be for farming, then let's find out what best land use activity can be done in that area. But otherwise, as the land reform stands, it's a strong foundation that has been laid.
Clip and seeing that the majority of the people who are there are mainly black farmers, wouldn't you consider that a success? And looking at the figures, like what the minister said,
well,
that this year's crop has been about 170 million kgs that they expect. Would you consider the whole process a success?
Well, for me, that's that's more than 50% of success. We have crossed the 50% line of success as far as the land reform is concerned, because now in less than 10 years after the land reform, we now have local Zimbabweans who can actually produce that amount of tobacco from the land. These are people who for generations and centuries were not allowed to engage in such productive farming. So when you look at all those historical factors, and when you look at the challenges that people face right now of inputs and capital to buy, to make sure that they can grow crops successfully, that's quite an encouraging success which we have to build on so that it becomes 95% plus success.
Well, Mr. Musara, having worked in this sector in Zimbabwe, we know that you went there for a few months or so and you were working with people involved in this industry. Would you say, coming from the diaspora and you going back to Zim and working there for those couple of months, would you say the same opportunities that are available for Zimbabweans locally are the same that are available for those who are non-domiciled, i.e. those in the diaspora?
Well, yes, I would certainly advocate that any land that is available should be also made available to those Zimbabwean citizens abroad. Then I think people can forge alliances and see how best they can use the land that they have. And look, we are dealing with people who have been exposed to different parts of the world where they have seen land being used differently. So I think there is still a pending need to ensure that every Zimbabwean citizen who needs land gets a fair share piece of the land, and then we can always work together to help each other to ensure that that land is used productively.
What could be done to sway skeptics and cynics, those who preach against such a program?
There is evidence that progress is being made to ensure that the land reform becomes a total success. I understand that there are cynics and skeptics and opponents of the program for various reasons. But at the end of the day, I don't think that the program should be reversed. There is no reversal of this noble program. What must be done is to build on top of the foundation that has been laid already. So now we have to work together as Zimbabweans to ensure that we generate the capital that we need to fill the glass up. Because as it stands right now, I think our glass is half full rather than half empty. So it will take a lot of hard work, a lot of understanding to pull our minds and resources together, because it's going to be difficult to generate the huge amounts of capital that we need to develop our country forward, if we don't work together. So we have to find a way of working together right across the board, from civil society, from political parties, from the business sector, working together, all those interest groups, pulling forward together in one common direction for Zimbabwe. I think that's the only way that we can develop our nation forward. And that's the only way that we can ensure that the natural resources that we have are used for the benefit of each and every Zimbabwean. Because when we are divided, it means when there's division, it's going to be difficult to share the cake with everybody. There's going to be division. Some people are going to be excluded. Some people will become hungry. And when some people become hungry, they become vulnerable to influence, So if it's foreign elements wanting to destabilize a country, they look for problem. They look for the most vulnerable. If people are given food or money, they can easily do some very hostile things even to their own nation. So there's a pressing need for us as Zimbabweans to find ways of always arriving at a working consensus that is in the best national interest, so that we can keep out those who may seek to come in between and instigate internal strife and conflict.
What does the Constitution mean to a young person like yourself, and has there been a genuine need to draft a new Constitution from your own understanding?
Well, a Constitution is like a contract. So to me, when citizens of a country come together to write a constitution, they're coming together to write a contract in which we agree on how things ought to be done. We agree on how our country ought to be governed. We agree on how natural resources ought to be exploited and used and distributed. We agree on how we deal with those who sort of deviate from the rules that we set in the contract. So for me, it's a national contract that is binding to all citizens of the country and all other people who may deal with us as a country, as a sovereign state. So I believe each and every person should have their say when drafting the national contract. Then, of course, we will go to a referendum where each and every person is supposed to have a say on whether what is written in the contract is what they say or they believe in. But we have to be realistic as well. I have my own personal values that I would want to be done, or I would want the country to be run in my own way as a person. But I have to understand that it's not my country alone. I share the country with others. That means it will be unrealistic for me to want everything my way, you see. So there has to be some level of compromise that is required so that we meet halfway and have a fair deal. So for me, a constitution is a national contract on how things ought to be done. And citizens come together, we share ideas on how things ought to be done. We make some fair compromises and come up with a binding document that must be enforced, upheld, and defended by each and every citizen of the land.
We haven't read the Constitution. I've only seen bits and pieces of it on the internet. I don't know whether that's a true reflection of the Constitution or not. But until I go through the whole Constitution, then I'll be able to give a fair comment.
On the clip, we saw a gentleman who said that he hadn't actually seen the document, he's just seen bits and pieces of it. Could there be a problem that the whole process was done too fast and the public hasn't had that opportunity to actually take in the whole document?
You see, when you embark on such a national process that involves more than 13 million, it's going to be difficult to do things perfectly, 100% perfectly, you know, because we are living in a real world. So I don't think there are deliberate attempts as such to prevent some people from accessing the COPAC document. We also have to understand the struggles that we are still facing in our country, be it the struggles of technology or technical illiteracy, where not all of our people have access to the internet, where they can simply go on the COPAC website, log there and check and read the document. Or some people are not yet able to use Facebook, where they can get access to the document where it's also being circulated. And we also have a real challenge of some of our people being unable to read and understand. But all the same, I think we still have to understand that some of our people may not be able to read, but they know what is right and what is wrong. They know how things ought to be done, such that if given a chance to vote or to say something, they will certainly say something, say something to that effect. So as it stands right now, I understand there are challenges that are there with regard to public access to the Constitution, but efforts are being made to conduct public awareness programs across the country to ensure that each and every person at least has some decent chance of getting access to that document and be able to make an informed decision. So yes, the challenges of access, but all the same, I think these are expected challenges in such a complex task, And what we now need to do is to ensure that public awareness of the Constitution is not a process confined prior to the referendum, but it should be an ongoing process where citizens have to be continuously made aware of the Constitution and its provisions. So I think the Constitution itself provides for measures for constitutional awareness after, even if it's passed, be it in our education curriculum. Some elements of constitutionalism, I think, must be inculcated from creche so that people grow up with this knowledge of the Constitution just as they grow up with knowledge of other things.
Politicians to want to continue with the current state of affairs where the president is wields so much power that he suffocates the rest of the other arms of government. So it's a bad document, very bad document. We were unhappy with the process, so we still remain unhappy with the process. That is a top-down. Politicians agree to a document and then try to push on the people. But that is not the main reason now. The main reason now is about what the Constitution provides. We can only accept a new Constitution in the country which reduces substantially the powers of the president.
Mr. Maduku is saying the Constitution as it is not a very good document, i.e. in that power has been vested in just the office of the president. Well, in his actual words, too much power has been vested in the hands of the president. What's your take on that?
Well, I've heard that view coming from Dr. Lavo Maduku, apparently the chairman of the NCA. Well, I believe that, Dr. Maduku's views, they are too idealistic and unrealistic, And why I say that, Dr. Maduku is on record for denouncing the corporate constitution as not being people-driven. But he doesn't offer an alternative as to how would he do it differently if it was him who was given the chance to still, even if it's him who is given the chance to write the constitution. You won't write it with 13 million on the table. That's unrealistic, you see. So what we want right now is realistic alternatives or solutions of doing things, right? Whichever people we are going to select, obviously you're going to end up with maybe less than 20 people working on that document. There is no constitution in history that has been written by 13 million, all of them sitting on the table. There has to be some representatives who have to be selected at some point in time. So suppose we go by the proposal of Dr. Maduku. Maybe Dr. Maduku, he wants us to use the NCA constitution. But NCA constitution, to what extent is it driven by people either way? At least when you look at COPAC, we can agree to some extent that the parties that are involved, to some extent, they were elected by people during parliamentary elections, because this is this has been a largely parliamentary driven process, and of course the executive and the judiciary have been involved. But MPs who were selected by people in a general election, which will be different from the NCA case whereby maybe you are just selected by 100 people at a Congress, and it's difficult for you to then claim to be representing the whole nation when you are just people elected by a few individuals maybe who belong to the NCA. So I don't think that Dr. Maduku is providing a realistic alternative. The constitution will always be written by a few representatives of the people, as long as what they produce represent the broad interests of the people. I personally don't see any problem with it. Myself, I was not on the table where this document was being written. I was never really involved on the talks table. But the contents of the document, I have no problem with them, really, when I look at them. And should I have any problems with them? Should I advocate for the abortion of the process? Or I should rather advocate for the improvement of the process? So myself, what I've chosen to do, because we also need to focus on other issues that are pressing. We have mass unemployment going on, people struggling to get jobs. We have people struggling to get income. And we can't keep going in circles about the constitution as if that's the only issue that we need to work on. So let this constitution pass, and if there are some of us who have problems with it, maybe what you can do now is to advocate for improvements on that constitution. And there's always a provision for amending the constitution. You can now influence the electoral process so that either you run for office yourself so that you can go to parliament and push for the improvement of the constitution, or you can make sure that you help to campaign to influence the election of representatives, that when they go to parliament, you know these guys are going to push your agenda forward. So I think right now what we need to do is to press forward, not backwards.
And as a young person, I think there's a better future and a brighter future. So I think the Constitution in Zimbabwe brings the basics of democracy, issues of discussing, issues of dialogue.
What other points do you feel could be added as a Zimbabwean living in the diaspora? Obviously, your voice is limited, and on this show we aim to give people like yourself an opportunity to get some points aired across.
As far as the constitution is concerned, I believe we have to move forward. A lot of time and money has been spent on this process, right? And I don't think it will be a wise decision if the process to be aborted on the 11th hour. You know, it's like a babe which is almost 9 months. You know, just before delivery, then someone comes on and say, no. I mean, this baby, the way the baby was conceived was not really it was maybe through premarital, it was premarital pregnancy, so we have to abort it. Well, I think it's too late for now. A lot of time has been spent, a lot of effort has been spent, and we have other pressing issues that we need to work on. And as long as this constitution issue comes being thrown in, it can divert our attention from the real and pressing issues. So right now, what I would urge fellow Zimbabweans to do is to make sure that come March 16, we vote yes to the new proposed national constitution, which is quite a fair constitution, where quite a number of issues are addressed. And if there are any of those who used to think that the Longest House constitution was not homegrown, now we have a constitution that has been written by us Zimbabweans amongst ourselves. This is a homegrown document, and we are laying a foundation for the building of a new nation. And this constitution is very clear on many issues as to how natural resources ought to be exploited and distributed, how people ought to be treated by the government, how we ought to treat each other as citizens of the country. Those are things that are very clear in the Constitution. And now, March 16, when we pass the referendum, we move forward to elections, which we believe should then be held under the new Constitution. And we believe that Zimbabweans will be able to elect a new functional government of their choice, which will enforce the true letter and spirit of the Constitution and the law, which we believe will then move forward to address the real and pressing issues of poverty. We can have a constitution, but we want that constitution to facilitate people to have food on their table, for people to have jobs, for people to have decent incomes, decent access to healthcare, electricity, and housing. Those are pressing issues that need our attention. So we can't afford to abandon the constitution process or to delay or postpone it. Then go again through another 3 or 4 years of trying to produce this document. So I think we have come a long way already, and now it has to be bottom graded. It has to be bottom graded. It has to be bottom graded. Definitely, we need to get down this constitution. After that, move straight into elections. Elections that must produce a functional government. We have already seen how a coalition government can be so dysfunctional that it becomes so difficult to tell who is responsible for what. It becomes so difficult for anybody to take responsibility. So after the constitutional referendum, let's go for elections, and Zimbabweans will choose one united government, hopefully, one government that can work for the issues.
Thank you very much, Mr. Musara, for a valid contribution. We hope to have you again on this show. Once again, to all those who would like to take part, our Skype address is a.television. I repeat, a.television.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Join us next time when we take a look at mining in Zambia.
Say that Zimbabwe is our country, which belongs to each and every Zimbabwean. Every person who is Zimbabwean by natural birth or by any other grounds that are provided for acceptably by our constitution, our laws, and our moral compass. Now, if you are a citizen of Zimbabwe and you love your country, you must play your part. This is like a game of football. Not all of us can play the same position, but play your part. Be it as a player in government, which is a player on the ground, play your part. Either as a fan, as an administrator, whoever you are, you must play a positive part to ensure that Zimbabwe is good for all of us. The country should not be good for a few individuals. It must be good for all of us so that we can enjoy this great country that God has given us.